Greetings and cat-aff. Welcome to a special dual episode of Someone Talked and World War II Live. We are actually in the studio in Bedford, alongside two of my greatest friends from the National D-Day Memorial Foundation.
Thank you, John.
April Cheek Messier and John Long. So that's the Someone Talk side.
I don't think he was talking about you.
Ah, dang it.
And I really didn't want to mention you, Kevin. Of course, I'm John C. McManus.
Oh, Kevin's in this?
I hate to admit that, but I am. And of course, alongside is my World War II Live partner in crime, Kevin Hymel. Kevin, I'm worried, like actually being in the studio with you where they could lead, but yeah, how are you?
John, it's good to see you in 3D. And tonight, I am the Grand Canyon to your Evil Knievel.
Wow. Yeah, see, do you
That's
remember when he tried to jump the Snake River?
I remember it well.
I don't remember it at all. I just made those things up.
Was that? Yeah. Yeah, that's
the
a
whole
good one.
nation stopped. I think that may have been one of the first pay-per-view events, because I remember we listened to it on the radio in my friend's kitchen.
Yep.
And then it was like days or a week later that the footage came out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very big deal.
Mhm.
Evil Knievel was it back in the 70s.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Thank
That's
you.
a really good one.
You should have worn the outfit that he wore.
I am wearing the outfit.
That's
It's a podcast.
Well, you just can't have the helmet on, I guess.
I know, that's right.
We
Let
wanted
me
to put
zip
the
up
helmet
the
on.
sequins here. Okay, cool.
Well, he wears that all the time, honestly. But
Standard uniform.
He is called evil every now and
yeah,
then.
You're right, gotcha.
True.
Take
a
lot
lot
fun
of people call Kevin evil, so we're part of the way there.
I plan on going to Evil Medical School, so please, it's Dr. Evil.
Maybe you are
to
Dr. Evil. Yeah, there you go. Question is, who's going to be your number two? It isn't going to be me. Yeah, so why are we here at the studio? Actually, we're going to have the funnest event tonight. The Omaha Beach Diorama is something that we've all been involved in. And in the spring of 2025, this incredible diorama was actually on site at my university, Missouri S&T, in the library. And it was just an amazing thing because students came by and, learned all about D-Day and Omaha Beach. And a lot of times I would hang out and just talk if someone came by. We had programs there. People, from town came to the university to check this thing out. It's just an amazing piece of work that, as I mentioned, we've all been involved with. Kevin and I in particular did some of like the short snippet videos that you can get just by scanning your phone, like with a QR code over the thing. So Kevin handles the 29th Division side. I handle the 1st Division side. Of course, the person who took the videos is our amazing producer also from World War II Live, Mark Fastoso. And he tried to make us look good, but that's a heck of a
tough hill
job.
to climb.
Especially for you, obviously.
Big time,
but, yeah, I mean, it was a tough hill to climb.
I had the runny nose the whole time, and I had to keep, it was pretty bad.
It was. I mean, we ran out of Kleenex, and it got dicey.
That's why God invented sleeves.
I spent the biggest part of yesterday helping Keith set it up. And while we were moving things around and getting it all arranged, people were coming in to see our exhibits, but also the half-finished D-Day Omaha Beach exhibit, and they kept scanning the QR code. So while I am, trying to, I kept hearing John McManus and Kevin Hymel talking to me.
Your voice was just looming.
What happened for the two of you all day long?
It accounts for why you look very traumatized.
Yes.
And I would say half the D-Day diorama is better than no D-Day diorama.
Well, it's all finished now,
Yeah.
and it really is spectacular.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
So,
I've worked with Keith for a long time in the magazine world. Got very used to his artwork. It's very good. And then to create this diorama is just so just such another level up.
And,
applause for him that he created that.
And just to pause for a moment, this is Keith Rocco we're talking about, who is just an absolutely brilliant artist, military artist. He did the murals at the Big Red One Museum in Wheaton, Illinois, for instance, and he did the artwork for this diorama. So you've got that. Kevin and I involved with like the historical advising and the video, the video snippets, and then you've got Bernie Kopinski, who's the actual dioramist, the artist who creates this thing, and it's just such an incredible reproduction of
Oh,
Omaha Beach.
Yep.
It's just to be able to walk up to it and get the kind of information that you can get using the wonderful QR codes and hearing from these two amazing historians.
Handsome.
It's pretty cool. I left that out. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I knew you were going there.
Yeah.
I knew you were going there.
But no, just to show the scale, I think.
Yeah.
But also just the Kevin, like you said, is so talented. Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Keith Rocco's talented too.
He's talented, Kevin.
He's almost as talented as Kevin when it comes to painting and dioramas. But it's mind-bogglingly good.
Yeah.
It is. And what better place for it than the National D-Day Memorial? So it's going to be here, till the end of 2026?
The end of the year. That's right.
Yeah.
So we will have it through the end of the year, and just so excited for a lot of students to come through and see it. We'll have, a lot of our tour groups and others, but what a great way to bring the history to life is looking at, his work, but also that, like you said, the dioramas are incredible, the videos, everything, every part of it, well thought out, really well done.
Yeah, and all the stuff that goes with it too.
I know the mannequins,
the mannequins
really
that
nice
are
mannequins with the, to be able to
actual
show the equipment.
artifacts.
Yeah.
Keith is a big collector too, as well as being a great artist.
Mhm.
And it's not just World War II, a lot of Civil War uniforms, things like that.
Well, not in this.
Not in this.
Not in this exhibit, but he is multi-dimensional
Oh, yeah.
in his history and his knowledge and his art.
Well, he's been at a lot of other, I guess he was at, has some work at the Pamplin Park, Civil War soldier, and another number of places, historic places. So it's really nice to see it here at the memorial. We're so excited.
Oh, it's amazing. And that's what I say,
Absolutely.
what better place for
Yeah.
it? So it'll be in the Quonset hut, right?
That's right. Our
Our
education,
education
hut.
concert hut.
Mhm.
Yeah. And of course, John, you have so many education groups coming through, so many groups of kids. Have you seen any spike in interest and on-site visits maybe for this fall as a result of word of mouth of this?
Not so much yet, but we expect we will. I don't think the word has gotten out to a lot of the schools, especially the local ones. It's easiest, of course, if you're within a half hour or an hour of memorial to get by. But we anticipate that there'll be a lot of interest, and also college kids. We're hoping that we can get the word out to college history programs, and if nothing else, come for extra credit. We'd love to have them.
Yeah, you got a lot of universities within the general area. That's a great learning experience, like it was for our S&T students. It was really neat to see the eyes light up, and some of them were my students from my World War II class, but most of them weren't. They're just there, kids studying for finals or doing whatever, and well, what's that? Because it was like a whole wing of the library. This thing is not small, and I mean, so you're just kind of drawn into it. One of the neat things we did at S&T is the university archivists found personal links of our alums who were part of Omaha Beach on D-Day, including one guy who was killed in action with the Gap assault teams.
Oh, wow.
So I had known a lot about that. So that was part of our particular display. But even without that, I mean, this thing just lives on its own. And so the reason we're here, that Kevin and I are here in particular, is tonight we're going to have a panel with Keith Rocco. John's going to moderate a public panel in which we're going to talk more about the diorama. And I think we'll get Keith talking, I hope, maybe a little bit about his artistic process. I'm always fascinated by that.
Oh, I am too. Yeah.
Whenever I ask him, because I'm just amazed what he can do. How do you do this? And it's, it's just like walking down the street for him, something. And, I do this, and this. I'm like, dude, do you realize how remarkable that is to be able to produce this kind of art?
I can't draw a stick figure.
No.
I can't either.
So I'm amazed at.
But
I know.
John, he probably looks at you and says, "How do you write all these books? My God, no, just start writing." And he's blowing his mind.
That's the neat thing, is we all brought our different skill sets.
Yep.
And
combination.
And Mark did too, in taking the videos of you and me, that was at least passable for us. You know? And I mean, it's difficult for him to work with
Had to
that.
put a lot of Vaseline on that lens.
He
for
really
me, let me
did.
tell
We
you.
had to really smudge that thing up.
He's putting nylon over the lens.
But also Bernie to reproduce the figures properly and to paint them and having the.
Now this is
The
Bernie
detail.
Kapinski you're talking.
Yeah, exactly. The actual
The
guy who did the
detail is
diorama. I
incredible.
kind of wish he was here too.
Yeah.
I mean, he deserves a lot of credit.
He used 3D printers to make the landing craft,
Yeah.
things like that. And I got to give Mark credit. He's the one that told me that. Thank you, Mark.
Mhm.
Even the little figures in the landing craft,
And the
Yeah.
right, the
which
detail.
are tiny.
and they look
And
proper when you look at the photographic evidence.
Oh yeah, I don't
Like-
just the fact that you see the LCAs going in, mostly on Omaha Beach, which is correct, versus the LCVPs that you would see. I mean, just every detail is just so refreshing.
Yeah,
I
they didn't
know.
guess at
Yeah.
anything.
So
Right.
right. The terrain and the terrain.
recognize the terrain, the
Mhm.
German gun emplacements. If you've been to Normandy and you've toured this, you say, "Oh, I've got a picture of that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is almost like the next best thing to being in Normandy at
Right.
Omaha Beach. I mean, the detail, the gradient, that they're going up to the cliff base and then things like that, just first class.
Yeah. Well, and
Amazing.
I love the detail he gives to the individuals in his paintings too. Like when you're just
Right.
looking at,
Mhm.
for example, John and I had the amazing honor to meet Charles Shea when we were in Normandy and actually had dinner with him and everything. But to see him portrayed and just it's almost like you can look straight through them. He just captures it so perfectly. Just kind of that stare, of this medic who Charles Shea, of course, medic on Omaha Beach,
First division.
First Division, and just thinking about what he had been through already, how many lives, including his best friend, had died
In his arms on Omaha Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eddie Morosevich.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's on our wall at the memorial.
Mhm.
But he captures it so beautifully, I think.
Oh yeah.
Um,
It's so well
yeah,
done.
yeah.
It
And,
does bring
Charles
them
was 101
101 when he died.
when we met him and got to have dinner with him, and as he was telling, he at that age your hearing is very difficult, of course. So it wasn't easy to carry on the conversation, but he could certainly tell stories.
Oh,
And
definitely.
I was thinking, wow, to be able, here's a man who was actually there on Omaha Beach, actually holding his best friend
Yeah.
as he bled out. And I say, what a great privilege it was. So I was thrilled to see him. There's a quote from him on one of the panels. And then of course, he's not identified, per se in the painting, but I looked at it, oh yeah, that's Charles Shea.
Yeah. You can tell right then if you know him.
Right.
And he's a legend. And, you go to Omaha Beach today.
Passed on now, but
There's a monument to him.
That's right.
And I mean, he will live on in our memories forever. He wrote about his experiences quite extensively because, I mean, obviously he was in a lot more combat than just Omaha Beach.
Right.
He became a POW for a while. He fought in the Korean War, by the way. He was a combat medic in Korea, and he's actually a combat medic in Korea in the 7th Infantry Regiment, which is, my unit that
Your
I'm the
baby.
historian for.
Yeah.
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 I just think he's so amazing, and to have had the experience just to meet him, something I'll never forget. And I like that he's just kind of represented in this thing
Right.
as the spirit of the medics, at least as I
Yes.
see it.
Mhm. Yeah, with a lot of paintings like that, nothing's random. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything's got a little story
Right.
behind it, so that's impressive.
which
Yeah.
makes it come to life. I think
Yeah.
that's what's so
Mhm.
meaningful about it is you're looking at these, you're hearing of these stories, and that really brings it all to life. So it's the human element of what was happening on the beaches on that day, of individually, story by story, what was happening. When you see that, Waverly Woodson is another one.
Yeah, I love that.
Love that one too.
And I mentioned the mural that Keith painted for the Big Red One Museum in Wheaton. Waverly Woodson is very well represented in that.
Yeah.
And so is the 320th.
Oh, I love
Love
seeing the
that.
320th on
Yeah.
there.
I think you got to explain Woodson.
So Woodson was part of the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion, which is an African-American combat unit that actually lands some of it at or around H hour on Omaha Beach on D-Day. Woodson was a medic who really could have been a physician by that point in the war, but there weren't many opportunities to go to medical school. But he's just like a born caregiver. And he saves who knows how many lives in the course of the day, dozens. He apparently performed one amputation right on site
From
with
his foot, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh
so-
my gosh.
so-
He,
and he was wounded. He
he himself was wounded, and
Yep.
he
Yeah.
couldn't have cared less. And
And-
so he's the recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross latter year. I think he deserves the Medal of Honor. I think we
I
all
agree.
agree on that.
Mhm.
hopefully that'll happen someday.
I think it was, if not last year, 2 years ago, they gave him the Combat Medic Award, and the presentation occurred at his gravesite at Arlington National Cemetery. So it's nice to know he's still remembered, still revered, still honored, and that's great that he's in that not the diorama, in this painting.
It's in Keith's painting that that you can see, especially at the Big Red One Museum in the Chicago area.
Yeah,
which it's so well done.
And we had his family was with us for the 80th anniversary.
Oh, fantastic!
And so they laid a wreath at the 320th Barge Balloon Battalion plaque that we have. But it was very meaningful to meet them and to have them here as well. But how great to see him in that mural.
And Keith comes by all this pretty honestly. He's the son of a World War II veteran who served in the 26th Infantry Division, and was wounded, and so Keith is steeped in that tradition, and then maybe one of the things we can talk about tonight on the panel. So obviously he understands this world really well, and the human story, which he's able to replicate so brilliantly. I just think it's incredibly moving.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about it tonight, though. I'm not going to talk about it.
Well, how are you going to talk about painting a mural?
Well, let me tell you, you said you couldn't do stick figures, John Long. I can do some mean stick figures.
Okay.
Straw landing.
So next year, the Kevin Hymel stick figure
exhibit. Yeah, that's it, man.
As impressive as that is, I'm sticking with Keith. Sorry. No offense.
I could have like the stick figure laying down and his stick arm being on the other side of the beach and stuff like that.
Will your stick figure pattern look any different?
Oh, it has the stars all over the helmet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little circle head.
Better than the general commercials, I guess.
A little bit, yeah. The mustache won't be there.
All right. Would not like that
Yeah.
big there.
No, it's that Yosemite Sam mustache he's got rolling on there.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, I'll take a moment to tease that in an upcoming episode, we will be talking about Kevin's third volume of Patton's War.
Oh my
Wow.
God!
Yeah.
I bet
Oh,
everybody's going to turn into that.
Had we told you that?
No, there's coming a complete shock. And
Do you know you're going to be coming out?
That's what that thing on my calendar's referencing.
We're just going to call you up when
randomly
get you out of bed.
Kevin, you got 20 minutes. Let's talk about your book on Patton.
And please wear the Evel Knievel uniform.
Yes.
Well, I wear it every time I'm on the podcast. Why should I make it?
I would hope so.
Yeah, the bell bottoms get a little way a little bit, but yeah, man,
The
tuck them in.
Maybe the
Helmet rocks. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sort of the Super Dave Osborne version of Evel Knievel.
Right.
Those are 80s reference. Oh my goodness.
Now,
We're old.
John, so you saw the diorama and the whole exhibit at Missouri S&T. So what do you think the students' favorite part of it was? What seemed to really?
I think it's the little figures and
Yeah.
and all the boats and the representation of combat in there.
Mhm.
I mean, and they're interested in the mannequins, with the uniforms. Some of them are sort of hardcore into uniforms and they're interested in that. But no, it was like the sort of replication of Omaha Beach, because some of them, of course, have played video games of Omaha Beach, and so they're kind of comparing it to that. Or some who have had my class are kind of comparing to it, or some who have seen Private Ryan or something. So there's that reference point. But it was just kind of this real fascination, and it was just fun to see. It was just random students and faculty too. We're coming in and they're kind of learning about D-Day, and like I said, people from town. So I'm hoping more people now are coming to the memorial. We always want tons, and they should, and no matter. But to me, this is like the perfect place for the diorama forever, in my opinion. But it's a traveling exhibit, obviously, for now. But it's just, I think you'll just be fascinated to look at this and just take a few moments, and it's like you're seeing it in 3D, like Kevin said. You're seeing it like replicated right there.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that scale. It's hard to explain the scale of Omaha Beach, and what you're seeing. But I think that does such a great job of showing that.
What is Omaha? 3.5 miles?
4.5.
4.5. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's very hard to visualize, even when you're there, looking down the beach. But John, I wanted to ask to follow up on April, were the students or the people looking at the exhibit, were they reading the stuff or just?
They're reading some.
They are, okay.
But they're like sort of like captivated by the actual terrain or the little figures or whatever, and then they'll kind of stop and talk to the next person, point out, what about that? And then sometimes, like if I were there, they'd ask me questions. What's this? And I'd say, well, that's WN62, and this is what happened there, and these are the key people there. And oh, what about over here? And I really like that it represents both divisions very, very well in great detail. I think our friend Joe Balkowski is and was and would be very, very happy about how the 29th Division is portrayed, just as I'm happy with the 1st Division. There's just a lot of attention to that kind of important detail, plus the attached units, which is just
the Rangers.
Cool. The Rangers, engineers, tanks, you know, I mean, you name it. The barrage balloon guys. I mean, it's just really, really well done. So I just think, you know, and I think all played with Army men as kids and whatever, and so we're fascinated by that.
I may not have.
You didn't?
No, she
was that.
She was having Barbie going on a date with G.I. Joe. That's what April was doing.
It was only later.
Only later. So you've been playing with Army men.
I have several on my desk.
We got her to admit it.
Yep. She's got the old Ted Lasso soldier defending her.
That's right, exactly.
We did, you know, some of us nerds grew up on this kind of stuff, and so to see it replicated this way is just cool.
It is.
Better than Hollywood, better than Longest Day.
Oh, definitely better than Longest Day. Yeah, for sure. But it's really educational too with the panels, because I mean we vetted the panels, of course, and in spite of that, they're good, obviously. But no, they are. I mean, it's a really good primer, and then the videos, if you can stomach hearing Kevin and I.
Woohoo! I don't joke on any of them. Just a little precursor.
I'm surprised.
There. Yeah, I kept serious.
I think it's really great too for us to have the kind of attention that we do too on the Big Red One. We get a lot of focus on the 29th Division, mainly because of where we are, and of course the Becker Boys story and all that. So it's
Bob Slaughter
and Bob Slaughter. So it is really nice to be able to show kind of the the eastern part of Omaha Beach and what's going on with the Big Red One, and tell those stories, because I think sometimes it gets a bit overshadowed. And so it's really nice to show both. Here in this exhibit.
Yeah, Keith very carefully represent one of my favorite stories, which are the destroyers at Omaha Beach. There's a smaller diorama of destroyer, and of course, closing in and using destroyers pretty much as anti-personnel weapons.
Absolutely,
that says something about why we're going to win the day by June 7th.
Oh, that's such a difference maker that day. USS Frankfurt, USS Carmick, Harding. I mean, you name it. Emmons. I mean, on and on the list goes. HMS Taliban. They come in and they make the difference as of about mid to late morning. And I like that that's included. So you know who else would really approve of that? Another friend of ours, Craig Simons.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, Craig would love.
Yeah.
And he likes the ships.
You know if he's seen this? Has he been?
I don't know. That's a good question. If so, we haven't discussed
it. And
it.
Joe Balkowski too. Is he?
To my knowledge, Joe has not seen it. What do you think, Kevin?
No, he has not.
We should ask him. He should come down here and check this out.
Yeah, he's not too far away.
He's in Baltimore.
Yeah.
That's
a
April, you were talking about how, I hate to say it, put it this way, but how much more popular 29th is in 1st Infantry. I think one of the reasons for that is, when you travel to Omaha Beach, so one of the first places you go to is Veerville Draw, which is the far, I guess, western side of the beach. And then Les Moulins Draw, there's a nice big road and a memorial museum there. But there's nothing when you get to the other end of the beach, what's that last draw where you're looking at the face of the cliffs, John, where the 1st Infantry and 29th?
Do you mean the Colville draw, or do you mean
further
over at Fox Green there?
Coburg.
Coburg draw. Yeah.
And so I've taken people down there because you can see where the other 88 is that would fire across the beach.
Oh, at WN61.
Yep. And I think it's is it 64 that everybody goes to on the way up to the cemetery?
65. So that's where you have that 50 millimeter piece that's still in the pillbox, and the pillbox is very bad damaged, from the naval gunfire, but also the anti-aircraft fire too. It's a combination.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Coburg is to me almost like the forgotten part of Omaha Beach, and I bring people there on my tours, and I have the photographs of the medics at the base of the cliff with the IVs, treating them, and they're fascinated, and I can see, once you go there, I had illustrated a lot or gotten the photographs for a lot of different D-Day stories and realized how wrong they're not labeled, as where they are on Omaha Beach. You have to go there and see it and figure out, oh, wait a second. this photo of these medics at the base of a cliff we've been using for visual draw, and it looks nothing like that. So yeah, I think that's another reason with the 29th in a way being more popular, because it's easier to visit their battle areas. And 1st Infantry
That's
to
a
get
good
down to
point.
Coburg,
Yeah.
nobody goes. I mean, I don't
Well,
think nobody goes there, but rarely goes.
They have a film advantage because the 29th Division and the Rangers are portrayed in Saving Private Ryan.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
right there. And the other thing that's so interesting, that's where the original history went too. Like the combat historians, they were interviewing the 29th Division survivors, the Ranger survivors, not as much the Big Red One.
Mm.
There's like 400 to 500 pages of material from 29th and Rangers, and there was 83 pages from the Big Red One, which is one of the reasons why I decided to write about the Big Red
Interesting.
One. I
Yeah.
thought, well, that's
Wow.
something new maybe that we could find. So I think our sort of attention has continued that way. But that's one of the things I like about the diorama. It's very equitable.
Mm-hmm.
It's the two sides right
It
there.
is.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Although we'd be remiss if we didn't remind everyone, of course, there's also 4 other beaches. There are, Canadians at
Absolutely.
Juneau. There's
Yep.
the Brits at Sword, and then
And
the
gold.
French resistance as
Mhm.
well. So
Mhm.
and we don't have to. I don't have to convince you of this, but there's just so much to the D-Day story.
Yep.
You can never even scratch the surface. There's always more that you can dig out.
And we constantly are, aren't we?
Right.
Yeah.
And so this exhibit, I hope will awaken interest of a lot of people, maybe too young to have seen Saving Private Ryan. But this, they'll realize, boy, this is really a consequential day in human history, and I wanted to learn more.
Well, John, you were saying about all the documents, how there's so much more on the 29th in the 1st Infantry Division. When I started looking at the archived interviews, things like that the U.S. Army did, it was a real lesson in the technology of the time, because when we interview somebody, or I mean, it's a little harder to do than ever, but when we were doing it, we could sit down, record everything, video record. A lot of the interviews that the historians did on the beach, they would bring together 6 guys and say, tell me, and they'd say, was it tough? And they'd say, yes, all 6 guys said it was tough. It's not what we expect from our modern interviews, things like that.
Right.
And that's what you guys do so well, I feel, here, is fill those holes, having the necrology and interviewing vets. Basically, I'm trying to subvert saying that I want to see your whole collection.
And it's an amazing collection, and no one knows more than John Long.
I come here, I speak, I go back home. I want to see the collection, guys. I want to see
Stay
the
on his
museum.
good side.
Yeah.
I would have showed off. We have space for only a
Wow.
tiny fraction on exhibit at one time.
Yep.
So yeah,
That'll change in the future. We're
Yes,
working on that.
we're
But
working
yeah,
on that. We are. It
one
will
day
happen.
it will happen.
That's the challenge
Although
of almost every museum.
we do have our LCVP, which I don't think you've seen.
No.
That's right.
So,
Which is
Yeah, we'll make sure to.
Yeah.
Where's the body of water that I can go do some figure eights? And,
Well, it's yeah, it's
not gonna
asphalt.
let you
It's
take it
not
out.
quite as maneuverable.
That's smart.
I
You, really
forgot,
should.
yeah.
You would forever regret it.
let me just drop the ramp this one time.
The donors would be like, "We gave money for this clown to screw up the
If, if you drop the ramp, you have to crank it back up. 'Cause that is not an easy
That's
task.
right.
Come on, between the 4 of us, piece of cake.
Sure, no problem."
There's a reason why I was a 19, 20-year-old sailor doing that.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And everything
For
else. Yeah, you had to be young. Yeah.
Incidentally, we mentioned the mannequins, and there was mannequins to the exhibit that are in very authentic, not only very authentic uniforms and equipment, but I thought they really got the 1,000-yard stare down.
Yeah.
These
Oh,
guys.
no.
But Keith and I were working on it yesterday, and there's a medic, and he's seated on a crate, just taking a break. And Keith's looking at him saying, "You know what he needs? He needs a cigarette."
Yep.
So yeah, I went and I found some from a reproduction K ration, some unfiltered Camel. So we stuck one in his fingers. You can look for that tonight.
You didn't
yeah.
smoke it a little bit to make sure that it was legitimate
Well-
Camel. Like, tobacco tastes right.
Yeah.
But part of the culture of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Very representative.
Well, I think
Yeah.
I-
I smoked what, 4 packs of
4 to
one
6
filter
per day.
per
Yeah.
day.
But those were the healthy cigarettes you were smoking, not the bad
Doctors
ones.
recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 doctors.
I think I told you guys that when I was on set for the movie 6888, And the first scene they filmed was the soldiers coming back from the battlefield, the Texas Army. And I said, wait, Tyler Perry, wait. It's 1943. These guys half of them should be smoking cigarettes. And one of the other advisors pulled me aside. He said, Kevin, if they smoke cigarettes, we're rated R.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, shuck my corn.
Suck my corn. What a sophisticated historical
Which is
advisor.
not what I said on set.
Suck my corn. Wow.
But kudos to you, my friend, for getting that cigarette into that mannequin. Sure, it made the mannequin's nerves calmer.
He stopped complaining.
There you go.
That's true.
Now, let me ask you this. The mannequin, when the uniform, was that an actual World War II uniform or was it a recreation?
I didn't ask Keith. Do you know?
I think they're reproduction, but I could be
Good.
wrong.
Yeah.
My understanding is they're repros.
But a lot of the gear is authentic.
Okay.
So like there's a
Like the cigarette.
the medic has a stretcher with him.
Right.
And we folded that up and got it standing up next to him. There are field phones
Mm-hmm.
there, and also some an exhibit of German artifacts that were brought back by the father of a friend of Keith.
Mm-hmm.
For this exhibit, but so actual wartime souvenirs.
The first time I sort of learned the difference between American and European museums, I was in the Army Museum in Chelsea, the National Army Museum in England. And, in the Air and Space Museum, American History Museum, all the ones around DC, those are actual period, uniforms from the 1940s, things like that. And they had a soldier fighting in the Napoleonic Wars at Waterloo. And they used a recreation uniform and then covered it in mud. And to me, it was such a better illustration of the conditions of the fighting than if they had used an actual 17 or 1800 uniform and kept it pristine.
Right.
Yeah, you couldn't cover it in mud.
Yeah,
Right.
He'd be out of a job.
Yeah, that's right.
Speaking of which,
Wait, Mike, do I still have a job? Wait, what?
No. That's always minute by minute proposition. One of the jobs we always do with World War II Live, if you're just a someone talk person, you may not be familiar. We do a segment called Stump the Chumps about the midpoint of every episode. And we've reached that point where the job is, I guess, to go to Stump the Chumps. And we've got a very special guest who's going to be part of our Stump the Chumps universe here, our producer from World War II Live, Mark Fastoso, who basically lies in wait each week to humiliate Kevin and me with these questions. The premise of it is these are completely unscripted questions. We don't know them ahead of time. Could be on any aspect of World War II or whatever else, I guess. And we do the best we can to answer them, knowing that sometimes the chumps will be stumped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're brilliant and other times we're chumps.
Yeah. Our brilliance seems to be very few and far between versus the other side. But yeah, so Mark is going to be nice enough to make a cameo here and so that he can humiliate us.
Ooh, did he get off the mute button?
I'm off the mute button. Hey.
Wow, this is on a very special episode of World War II Live.
Progress.
My new friends,
Mark remembers to turn off the mute button.
And I'm at the beach on vacation. I was actually sitting at the beach and I realized, whoa, it's time for Stump the Chumps. I better run off the beach because it's my favorite time of the week, right?
That's why the window behind you looks shattered, isn't it?
You were dedicated, Mark. That's dedication.
Oh no! This is his joy.
Oh.
God, like idiots.
Gives him great satisfaction.
What's better than a day at the beach?
Yeah, but do you have an LCVP with you out there, Mark? I think no.
All right. So hey, just one quick plug for the diorama, right? So I worked on it with all these guys, and one thing I realized, right, is dioramas are really kind of a dying art, right? In the 50s, 60s, it was everywhere. Gettysburg was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not done as much anymore. And so what we did is really amazing because it's state of the art today diorama. It's great. And so if you're even half thinking about going to the memorial to see it, I would urge you to go because it is a unique experience you can't get anywhere else. So if you like, World War II history, you like learning about D-Day, go to the memorial. You'll have an experience like you can't anywhere else. So
to all our podcast listeners, we're all nodding as Mark is speaking. Yep.
Check it out. All right.
You should always come to the memorial, but now especially with this.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Totally
So beyond the exhibit, we also have a great memorial.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard things.
All right. So I have a question, and I've been saving this question actually for a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
It came in, and I knew we were going to be doing this, and I thought, I got to save this one. It's from Jake in Minnesota.
Hey, Jake.
And Jake says, "Hey, boys, love the podcast. I've been reading about the Bedford Boys and realizing that they suffered one of America's most per capita losses on D-Day. Was Bedford simply unlucky, or did the way the U.S. Army organized National Guard units actually make the disaster more likely to happen?" Interesting.
I would say both. Yeah, so this is a National Guard unit, which is at that point, seeing its first combat, and thus kind of is structured like a National Guard unit, meaning you've got a decent number of guys in it who had joined from early on, well before the war, usually just to make a little money, serve a couple days a month, whatever.
Extra $1 a day.
Yeah, actually, which really mattered.
It did.
That went a long way.
Yeah.
And so now, obviously, World War II has come along, and they're part of this combat infantry unit that has this very difficult task. And so that makes a town vulnerable because it's a small town, of course. And I don't have to tell you that, it's people are going to know what, they're going to feel these casualties. But also the bad luck part, I would say, comes from the fact that they end up landing, a lot of them, in the Vierville Draw and the worst point of H hour. And I think that exacerbates this.
And almost no one else did, so they're
Right.
they're the targets. They're the only ones there.
Yeah, they were the only
Yeah.
ones on time.
On time.
And, I was going to say something profound and deep, and I've told
That'd be
you.
that'd be
No,
something.
it was sort of like
Really?
all the stars aligned to put them in that spot at that moment. I've talked to veterans of the 29th, of the 90th Division, other National Guard units, and they'd say, I never met anybody from the home states because they, as they stood them up, they brought in more people and things like that.
Right.
But I think because the 29th was stood up early in the war and ships off to England, they don't have that, they're not fleshed out with people from outside states and
That's
things
right.
like that. And I think it's a real lesson for the U.S. Army.
Oh, yeah.
There's just like the Sullivan brothers.
Yeah.
It's like we
Right.
can't let this kind of thing happen again.
Mhm.
So
The
I-
Army's
and
mindful of that. The military is of trying to, break up brothers.
Yep.
People from the same, smaller towns. You have the Nyland brothers. Of course, that
Mhm.
happens on the heels of
Mhm.
this, and that's the inspiration for Private Ryan.
Yep.
But I think it really has a lot to do with it's the first combat the 29th has seen.
Mhm.
And so it's still a kind of cohesive local unit in a way.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And
Versus later.
It's Company A,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
so much the Bedford Boys, as much as we obviously, keep the Bedford Boys story alive.
Mhm.
It's Company A, which is from all over the country because,
Mm.
of course, the draft had happened, and the Germans weren't up on the bluff saying, "Oh, that guy's from Bedford."
Right. They
So,
came out,
but
yeah.
it was simply they were given this job at a time when it's inevitable that the losses are going to be tremendous, and so Bedford proportionally had the highest per capita.
And so Company A on D-Day, 100 soldiers, 150.
Oh, no, 193, I think.
Yeah.
So out of 200, you have what, 28? How many?
From Bedford, 19 from Company A,
Right.
That died.
one man from Bedford in another company, so 20 from
20
this
died.
town
But you actually had 31 who were in the company on
Mhm.
D-Day morning
from Bedford.
from Bedford.
And the majority were killed.
That's right.
Right.
Several of them didn't make it in all
Landing
the
craft
way, and
sank.
one of the landing crafts sank. So 5 of them were actually in the water and would come in later.
So
but they-
the division had been fleshed out with people not from
Mhm.
the local
correct.
area.
Oh, yes.
They-
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But the core leadership, the captain, the lieutenant, the
Mhm.
main non-coms, they were still Bedford boys.
Yep.
And I say it was just a, I guess the luck or the draw could have been with some other unit, but Company A and the Bedford boys just were right in the guns.
And the counterpoint to that is what happens on the other side of Omaha Beach with the Big Red One. E Company and F Company 16th Infantry, which end up in the very, very same situation as A Company 116th. They're in that kill zone, but obviously the losses are dispersed far and wide in America because there's no National Guard kind of tradition for the Big
Right.
Red One. It was the regular tradition, but not everybody's a regular in that unit. So it's kind of similar in terms of the structure.
Yeah.
Just because it's a Guard unit doesn't mean everybody's from Bedford.
Absolutely. And
And John and April, you guys would know this better than me. I mean, I remember when Saving Private Ryan came out, And it seems like the Bedford Boy story came out on the heels of that.
A couple years later.
Yeah. And so what was I mean, did the country all know about this in 1944, 45? It's something that the government didn't want known. I mean, when did that story blossom, I guess, or reach?
The longest day tells some of it. I think it
Ryan wrote
developed.
about it.
Yeah. I think it developed over time. But it's really in the 90s as the memorial is being that, they kind of say, let's think about the per capita losses of this one community.
But even before that, even in the 80s, it was out there, but it was much later though. From like you wouldn't have read about this community and this huge impact. Certainly during the war, but
you saw some of it in the 80s.
Yeah, but in the 80s there were some stories.
Did
about
Ambrose's book bring?
Ambrose mentions it.
He does.
I'd have to look back at.
Cornelius Ryan's book is the one that brought it really to everyone's attention the most, and then Ambrose started, writing. He wrote about it as well, but I think Saving Private Ryan is what really
brought the attention to D-Day itself.
Yeah, and then the story really started.
The very first D-Day memorial anywhere, as far as I know, was here in Bedford in 1954.
Wow!
And it's at the courthouse still, and it's a plaque built on Normandy stone that lists all of the local boys who died, not just on D-Day but in Normandy, and it's
very moving.
Yeah, it's very moving, and it shows this community was aware of what that one day cost. Even within 10 years.
Yeah, thousands came out for that. And, like you said, it was just such it was so traumatic for the community. I mean, there was, families who just were obviously never the same. There were many sets of brothers who served in Company A. The Hoback family lost, both sons. There were examples of that kind of trauma that really just permeated the community for decades. I mean, it just changed everything. And as Roy Stevens, who was one of the Bedford boys who actually made it back, said it was like a black veil had dropped over the community, and it just wasn't the same after that. And there was a lot of guilt for the few that did survive and come back. Ray Nance was the last surviving officer of Company A, or the last surviving officer that day of Company A, and actually came back. But you can imagine the torment. He was he delivered mail, and you can imagine going to these homes of these family members, all of whom had these many of them who had young men who had died on D-Day, who would just sit at the mailbox and wait for Ray to deliver the mail and ask, "What happened to my boy? What happened to my boy?" It's just. The pain, we talk about D-Day, we talk about June 6th, June 7th, the weeks that follow, and all, but, the trauma and the pain that for forever haunted these families is something that we can never forget.
So yeah, Mark, we can talk about this for a while.
I know, really.
Mark, is that 4 A's all around, Mark? What do you think?
I think it's 3 A's, and Kevin, you copied off someone's paper on that.
Yeah, that's what he usually does. We had help from non-chumps to
finish line there. Yeah,
help from April and John.
Oh my God, we're being shelled by artillery rounds.
So April, do you have a question for them? April, do you have a question?
All right.
I'm going to quiz them for a moment.
If it's about Bedford.
No, but
hopefully it's about the North Platte Canteen.
Oh boy, we'll ace that.
All right, I have a tough one. And John, you're not allowed to answer this one. John Long.
Oh.
How many fatalities occurred on June 6, 1944? On the day itself, what was the exact number?
Allied fatalities?
Allied. American and the whole, Allied.
Names on our wall. I think.
This is
that's right.
See how close
it's
constantly evolving.
I know. This is a trick question.
More than
4,427.
Okay, that's pretty good.
That's not it. It's higher than that now.
It's higher than that now. So yeah.
What did John say?
4,427.
4,428. I'll go $1 more.
What is this, Jeopardy?
The price is right.
All right. We did, in fairness to John, we did just add more names to the wall. So we are now at 4,436.
So I was
36.
closer.
You were closer.
I
Well, it's 'cause I said it was
I'm
higher.
like more than 90.
Now, how many of
But-
those were Americans?
But, and
Okay.
April may not realize the scope of this, there were more names
I
waiting.
know. Don't know.
I am
know.
still researching. You know,
Ask us a question,
that
you'll know the
number will
answer to.
change.
Okay.
We have more names to add. But
2,512.
To quote an Oscar winner, it's a trick question. Oh, wait, no, that's not what she
That's the
said. I
number
can't
of
repeat what she said.
well, you're close because we did add more Americans to the wall.
And that's-
recently.
so it's
So
higher
now
than
we're
that
at
now.
2,519.
And 19.
Mhm.
Okay.
2,519 Americans, 1,917 allies. So right now the number is 4,400.
All right, I'm going to
And
answer that question.
For the World War II live, half of the
Yeah.
audience here are
Mhm.
probably
Wondering why.
80% of the audience. The D-Day Memorial Necrology Project has been an effort underway for 25 years now to uncover the names of every Allied fatality on June 6, 1944. And it is very rewarding research, challenging in a lot of ways, and that's why the numbers are continually developing. But we do have the most complete roster of D-Day fatalities of anywhere in the world.
So I'm going to answer the question with a question. And this one I've discussed with a number of historians. I know you guys are going to know the number of fatalities of Americans at Omaha Beach. Did it cross 1,000?
It is over 1,200.
It is over 1,200.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, we don't necessarily have geography with every name, and you can quibble over if a man drowned in the channel, but he was heading to Omaha Beach.
Right.
You know? So, but yeah, it's.
I thought the fatality number was like 986 or something, or maybe that was a
the
couple of years
last I
ago.
looked, and that we could designate a beach.
Right.
It was 1234, I believe.
Okay.
And we have added
again,
a number since then.
1,200.
Yeah, so we are
1,200.
approaching 1,250.
Yep.
But that's again with the caveat that you can quibble over what it means to be on Omaha Beach, and probably like some engineers. We don't necessarily have that captured in the database.
And are the numbers, and I won't ask for specifics, are the numbers between Omaha Beach and Utah Beach kind of even?
Well, that's interesting. We had that discussion with Joe Balkowski when he was on here. If you count the paratroopers, they're parallel. They're not exact.
Yep.
And Omaha Beach, definitely they at least early in the day, the losses were disproportionate. But really, if you do look at paratroopers, consider them
they're American soldiers,
and
That's right.
closer to Utah Beach.
Mhm.
Add them to the 4th Division, as well as the engineers and the tankers. And for that matter, I think the naval losses were higher
Right.
at Utah Beach. So yeah, they are. It's a little misconception to say Omaha Beach was the
Was a
example.
bloodbath.
It was the example of losses of anywhere in the world. I mean, a man dies, gives his life for his country, whether it's Omaha Beach or Utah Beach or Iwo Jima or Da Nang or Fallujah. They're heroes.
Yep. Completely agree.
Yep.
Yeah, and just by a way of explanation, just if you're not familiar with the necrology project, I mean, so we're sitting here with the person on the planet who knows more than anybody about this, and John especially. John inherited this program from others who had done a lot of the legwork, but and I know you're always very modest about it, like, oh, they did it all, but you've done a heck of a lot in the last, especially the last 5 to 10 years. And like you say, these evolving numbers, it's just constantly changing.
Carol Tuckweiler was the one who really originated this research, and I always say she added thousands of names. I've added, I don't know, 25, 30. So I'll give her credit. Yeah.
To scour around and find them now.
Yeah.
You mentioned like challenging. What's the biggest challenge in doing that? That's kind of my
It's
question.
competing death dates. If a man died from the 1st Division and he's buried in Normandy American Cemetery, we knew about him years ago. If he was brought back by his family for burial here He might have fallen through the cracks of the records, but most likely it's a man who, that if we add his name, next year, it's because he died on D-Day, but some of the records say June 8th, or the record for inexplicable reasons was suddenly changed to June 23rd, and nobody knows why that was. And so it's sorting out the discrepancies and harmonizing, sometimes taking our best guess, looking at the best evidence. That's
just a combination of evidence.
It is. And April probably gets tired of me giving her all these little details, but we have to.
Sometimes you feel like it's like forensic files, you're like trying to look at all the evidence. Oh, yeah, exactly. Like, what cold case do you have today?
Detective Long is on the case.
And it works the other way. We've taken names off the wall because sometimes
New
June
evidence
6th was the
come up.
incorrect date.
That's right.
This man clearly died on June 16th. I remember one case, and it's just a typo.
Right.
They missed the one when they typed up the date, and looking at the other records.
You're describing me at work every day.
These are the kind of mistakes he makes routine.
Yeah.
And I cannot fault the armed
clerk
I know.
on a typewriter on a beach under a tent in the
Exactly.
rain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, they weren't looking at a day. They wanted to notify mom at home.
No.
They weren't so much worried.
They had other
that he's going to be
priorities.
on a wall in Bedford someday.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I certainly don't fault them for
the best they could.
in the chaos.
Yeah.
Being confused about what day this happened. We don't know when things happen.
Well, and it can be difficult too. Like you said, the paratroopers are particularly problematic because oftentimes it
How do
was
you
when
know?
their body was found, and they just put down the date that the body was found, and and so you've got to go back and try to find that. I mean, it's just it's a lot of challenges.
So now that I've answered the question correctly, we got one last question. Right? More corrector,
fantasy world.
more corrector than John.
Right.
Correctest answer.
And better grammar too.
Yes, thank you very
Might
much.
say.
I have good grammar. We got one more question. Who's asking the question?
Yeah, we've got another stump the
we have
chumps
another?
question.
I think April's
April,
have
got
another one?
Throw it down.
I
see
don't know.
something
Anything you
highlighted.
got about that?
Questions.
It's like
I don't know. Mark, did you have any more? Because I have several, but I don't know if this. I'm gonna try to stump you. I don't know. These aren't really stump. They're more.
IMBD.
about-
IMBD.
Well, I have two. One is.
Oh, you have two.
kind of
Okay,
just a
go ahead.
question, and one actually, Jake had a second part to his question.
Oh.
That
Jake needs to come to Bedford, by the way.
Jake
It's
is a
pretty
thinker.
summable. I mean, I would be shocked if John or Kevin knew the answer.
Uh-oh.
But,
Moving on. April, you have a question?
All right, here it is. So Jake, he asked about the Bedford boys, and then he said, and you know what happened to the binoculars carried by Bedford boy Frank Draper on D-Day?
By chance, I do.
Do know.
Yeah, but
Go ahead, John, Kevin, speak up.
So they made a circuitous route around the globe and were eventually donated to the D-Day Memorial
You
in
are
Bedford,
correct.
Virginia.
They are
John
on
Long.
display in
Where
our
John
education
Long
building.
put them on display in one of the
Yeah.
buildings.
The one where the diorama is. You can see the diorama and see
And the binoculars.
those binoculars.
Frank Draper's binoculars.
Yep.
Jake has been here,
Yeah.
perhaps.
I thought this was going to be a tough question, Mark. Come on. I freaking ace that.
How did they end up there? Is it just did his family give him to the memorial? Or?
Well, that's a funny
a
story.
sailor by the name of Bert Fuller, British sailor, took them off of Frank Draper. He had been wounded on the Higgins or
He never made
LCA.
it off of.
He was on a LCA and he was taken back to a troop transport where there was really nothing to do. His arm had nearly been severed.
Yeah.
And the sailor took the binoculars off of him
Stayed
to try
with
to
them.
comfort him. And the sailor then just kept them as, just because what else you can do with them. And, as many years later, he sent them back to Frank Draper's family here in Bedford, and they donated it to the memorial. I don't remember what year off the top of my head,
Many
but
years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
But it's very touching to see them. It's just, again, something that really
Mhm.
personalizes the story and brings it home. It's very moving.
We've got enough time for one more stump the chumps.
All right. Well, April, I have one if you don't. It's up to you.
Okay. Well, you keep going, Mark. I mean, I've got
Whoever
plenty
had
of
the
things I can
easiest
ask.
one,
All right, here you go.
It's
So
hard.
this is from John Brabrazon.
John.
Yeah, we might have answered one of his questions before, but he says, how did the Allied command determine where to send infantry divisions? For example, the U.S. 1st Division, with the most combat experience against the Germans, was sent to Normandy, and they were alongside such divisions that had been trained in England and were completely green. Were these decisions influenced by internal politics or other considerations?
I can definitely speak to the 1st Division about why it ends up where it does. In that case, there just are very, very few choices of amphibious combat invasion experienced infantry divisions available for the Normandy invasion for Operation Overlord, because you basically have two leading divisions from the Mediterranean, the 1st and the 3rd. The 3rd is staying there, and of course the 34th is there, and the 1st Armored, the 2nd Armored is in play too, but they're not going to be available for the Normandy invasion. So you basically have the 1st and the 9th, and the 9th is not quite 100% ready. So Omar Bradley really has a choice of about one combat experienced infantry division for D-Day. So that's how that happens. If we're talking about a broader kind of discussion of how does the U.S. Army decide, or strategists decide where to send infantry divisions, all that, it kind of depends on what the size of the campaign is going to be.
Right. John, what do you mean the 9th Infantry Division wasn't ready? Because I've always wondered about that. The 9th Infantry fights in North Africa and Sicily. It makes, and then they are transferred to England and land after D-Day. What was not ready?
The octofoil had suffered more losses at Sicily, and so they were not quite as combat ready, as I understand it, for the invasion. And also, I think there's probably a reluctance to send both combat experienced divisions in on D-Day. And in part too, because they've got two really good units available that haven't seen combat yet, but have seen a lot of training, the 29th and the 4th. Those are very, very potent units. And so I think they felt that, this would be enough. Where they do feel a paucity, I think, in terms of experience is maybe on the airborne side, because we often say the combat experience 82nd Airborne Division. That's a misnomer. Only one of the regiments, the Parachute Infantry Regiment, and the 325th Glider had seen combat, but it had not gone on gliders into combat just yet. So there's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah. The 9th Infantry, to me, they didn't take heavy casualties in Sicily. They came in after Palermo was captured and replaced the 1st ID.
Yeah, but they're in that bloody fighting to the east. The octofoil we're talking about, the 9th Division. Yeah, I mean, they're in a lot of that bloody fighting to the east.
Because they take Troina. I always mix up the name.
The 1st Division does, but I think they're...
But once they take it, they get relieved by the 9th. Yeah, so they're part of that. But it's really the 3rd ID that, to me, does all the fighting. But the 29th is, if not one of the first, the 1st division over into England that stays there. Yeah.
Well, it's there longer.
Yes, because the 1st IDs there, they get pulled out to go down to North Africa. And I can't help but think, there's some politics involved, because the 29th is a National Guard unit. And the Army is trying to say, hey, these National Guard units are just as good as regular Army. There's definitely... I would like to friendly say competition, but a lot of regular Army soldiers really do look down on National Guard, weekend warriors, things like that. And so it's like, no, we're going to put a National Guard on the front lines here to prove that they are just as capable. And they prove it, on D-Day. And then after that, to me, it's really just a matter of feeding divisions, whether armor or infantry, across that channel, and just trying to get as many warm bodies onto the other side of the channel to keep things going. But it's interesting with there's those decisions to be made, transferring basically from the Mediterranean theater to the European theater and getting things initialized. But, once you get to the fighting on the continent, it's just division, that you're either going to the Pacific or the, European theater. It really, it becomes less of a choice as the war burns on.
That's interesting, Mark, because that was my question that I circled here. Look at that. But because I
simpatico.
Because I do think it's interesting, having the very green, 29th Division, although green, but have trained for over 2 years, on the western part of Omaha Beach. And then you've got the more battle hardened, 1st Division on the eastern portion. So would it have made any difference to have,
to switch them? Because they're both horrible places. And I think they both perform really well. I think that the 1st Division adapts a little quicker because they have that muscle memory of some of their combat veterans. As I estimate, and I could be wrong, but I think about half the manpower that goes ashore for the Big Red One is guys who are new.
Yeah.
But what's a little different from being a new guy there versus the 29th Division, at least you'd be near the veterans and around them, and you'd be inculcated with that culture a little bit. And I think there was a little more muscle memory, but actually, I think both divisions perform beautifully. Yeah. So it's really kind of an interesting study how an experienced division and a so-called green division can both do really well under these circumstances.
Yeah, I think
they win.
Yeah, they won.
So, yeah.
We're looking at the
even beyond that, I
terminators.
think at the soldier level, they fight very, very well for the most part.
Yeah,
but
I mean, the fatality rate's a little higher with the 29th Division, but you know.
And I think probably the first ID guys know not to believe everything they're being told, because the 29th guys are being told, there's going to be all these craters on the beach to duck into, and you're going to look up in the sky. You won't even see the sun. There's going to be so many planes flying over.
I can tell you about this. Absolutely. These Big Red Whip guys are so cynical. Captain Ode Wozensky is a really good example. He's a very combat experienced company commander of E Company 16th Infantry, one of the units that's really going to be in the barrel there. And of course, he like the others have been briefed about the pre-invasion bombardment's going to do this, and really what we're going to do with the bombardment, we're going to create paths for you, and there's really not going to be any Germans there. So, and he's just kind of like, yeah, all right. And so he's very skeptical, and when he comes ashore, he sees how more or less it's untouched, and he's like, yeah, those SOBs, he's like, yeah, it's so typical of these guys. I mean, I just love it because it's just like the classic kind of infantry viewpoint of just hating and doubting everybody else, and like you're almost like happy that it's turned out this way because you're right, just to spite them somehow, even though it's worse for you.
Look at the way they're kicking our butts. I was right.
I told them it was going to be that. I think Wozensky is a classic example of that. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, why don't we wrap this up? And I got to just say, John Long and April, I am so impressed with your show. You two really carry that thing. What you do is amazing. There's some deadwood sometimes on that, but you guys really carry forward. Really, I applaud you both.
Well, we know about deadwood.
You guys here in person. And I should say, be remiss if I didn't mention, we talked about the binoculars. You can go to dday.org onto our website and look at our 360 virtual artifact gallery and actually look at the binoculars up close. You can move them around and turn them. It's very cool.
I intend to do that today.
It's very cool. So
definitely.
I will say that. But we have been so happy to have you also on our podcast.
Yeah.
It's been great.
This has been so much fun.
Of course, you're always on our podcast.
Right?
It's just
you have to deal with me all the time. I know.
John said this was going to be a steel cage match. And it turned out very pleasant. Nothing like I expected.
You somehow survived.
Yes.
And, and speaking of deadwood, we got that on World War II Live too.
Oh boy, do we! I've been carrying that show for almost a year now, John. You got it in the crosshairs. What the problem is there? Good job.
Yeah,
and it was nice to meet Mark too. I know he keeps you guys.
Come to Bedford.
He tries.
Let's give you a tour.
Come on down. You'd love it, Mark. So yes, thank you. Thank you to Mark Fastoso. Thanks one and all from the D-Day Memorial and here in the studios, Woody and Angela. Incredible job as always. Thanks for putting up with me and especially with this character, Kevin Hymel. And Roger out.